All right, so today I am joined by one of our successful student applicants. Her name is Moriah, and I'm so thankful that you came and joined me to do this today, Moriah. It is really exciting to me to be able to connect with our students who have gone through our programs and who have put all of their work and time and effort into successful applications. So thank you so much for meeting with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So what are you finishing up right now or wrapping up before you move on to med school?
I had been working at a medical clinic for the last 2 years, so I'm kind of just moving on from that and getting ready to start this
Awesome.
semester. Yeah.
So was this your first time applying?
This was my first time applying. I was originally planning on applying this summer after my senior year, so taking one gap year. And I kind of took a practice MCAT, wasn't super happy with my score, and decided instead of cramming for 15 days and taking it for real, I should give myself the proper amount of time to study. And so I decided to take another gap year. And I had already had my job in place, so I knew I'd be getting experience and still working to kind of bolster my resume. So I decided that's what I was going to do.
You know, I think that's so smart. So many students feel like they need to rush to get all of these things accomplished, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't rush things like the MCAT or proper preparation for making your application as strong as it can be. So good on you for knowing to take the time and give yourself the room that you needed to do everything successfully.
Yeah.
And so how many schools did you end up applying to?
I believe I wound up applying to 19 schools. I think I sent out
19.
20 primaries and I did 19 secondaries.
That's a lot of work. That's an incredible amount of work. Good on you again for taking the hard road and just, putting in the labor that needs to be done for all of that.
Yeah.
So where were you ultimately accepted?
So I was accepted at the University of Massachusetts School of Medicine and the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, Greenville.
And which of those did you accept?
And I decided to go to the University of Massachusetts.
Awesome. Awesome. What made you decide to go with that one?
So I'm originally from Massachusetts. I went to undergrad in South Carolina, so I've been living there, and so I was kind of stuck between my new home and my old home kind of a thing. But ultimately, I decided to go back up north. I wanted to be closer to family. I figured having that support system while I was really busy in med school would kind of be crucial, and I couldn't really put a number on that. Also, the in-state tuition was a big factor for me as well. So that definitely came into play. And then also, both curriculums really kind of suited with me and my interests pretty well. They focus a lot on like the whole physician and making sure you know how to treat the patients as people, not just as like medical problems, that kind of thing, and lifestyle medicine and that kind of stuff that I'm really interested in. So kind of those were kind of equal. So then it was more the family and then tuition that brought me back up north.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's an important lesson there, especially that idea of really understanding the curriculum, because a lot of people think you get into med school and you just go to med school. But no, there are massive differences in curricula and, yeah, that patient-centered perspective and things like that. And you really need to make a choice based on a lot of different factors, but one of those factors has to be your own learning style and your own learning goals. So it's good that you were able to look into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so why did you decide to pursue medicine? Was there a turning point or an aha moment when you knew that this was really what you're meant to do?
So yeah, I'm definitely, I guess, not the traditional person as if I feel like a lot of people are like, I knew since I was a little kid. I always wanted to be a doctor, and that definitely wasn't necessarily me. I really had no idea what I wanted to do, especially through high school. And then in high school, I took an anatomy and physiology class, and I really, really loved that and had always been pretty curious growing up about how things worked and how things like come together to sustain something. And so seeing how that worked inside the human body was really, really cool for me and just like completely fascinating. And then in undergrad, I majored in public health. So I was really learning kind of the other side of medicine and how patients get care and what kind of barriers there are and just kind of all those different things. So those kind of came together in like my fascination with the science and the medicine part of it to the human aspect, and so kind of coming together. So it was at some point during my undergrad career, pretty early on, I was considering medicine, and then towards the end I was like, yeah, this is really what I want to do. And I'd had a couple shadowing experiences, and then I was interning at a medical facility, and so kind of seeing the actual day-to-day kind of solidified that, yeah, I could see myself doing this for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's so important, being able to get that day in, day out reality of what this
Yeah,
really means to pursue, not just as a career, but as sort of a vocation, right? Something you sort of feel called to do. So
right.
it seems like you had that perfect balance of education and experience, and it all just came together into this beautiful realization. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, absolutely.
So, when you were going through the application process, what did you find to be the most challenging part?
Um, Definitely all of the essay writing, being more of a science oriented undergrad. I definitely wrote a lot of papers, but they're scientific, they're dry, and then having to kind of turn the lens back on yourself and say like, oh, like, I think just writing about yourself is really hard. I feel like it's somewhat easier to do it in an interview and you're just talking, it's more casual, it feels more natural, but actually sitting down, pen and paper, typing it, writing it was definitely the hardest part for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I can empathize with that. Prior to my time at BeMo, I did a lot of teaching at the undergrad level, and I taught academic writing more in the humanities. And I know most students, and myself included when I was a student, wish that you could just plug something into your brain to make all the words and thoughts and feelings just magically pour out onto the page.
Right,
But
right.
alas, that is not the case. So yeah,
Work
it's
with
a real
everyone.
challenge.
Right.
So you worked with BeMo on your interview prep. What was it like working with BeMo for that, and what did you find most surprising about the process?
So I definitely found it the most surprising was, I feel like usually when you have a Skype interview or you're meeting with someone, you have a sort of beginning part where you're introducing yourself, you're talking, you're getting to know each other before you start. And with BeMo, the camera comes on your Skype interview, and it starts. It's exactly like if you were just going to walk into a room for an actual interview. And so that kind of surprised me, but I think ultimately that was the most helpful thing, really preparing, because it really kind of jumpstarts those nerves and helps actually simulate what the real interview is going to be like. So I think that was really helpful because I had done mock interviews with friends and family and with my academic advisor at my college, but I'd known those people for so long that it wasn't a true situation. So I found that was really, really helpful. I had interviews that were some were MMI and some were traditional. So BeMo was able, I did kind of one of each for the prep, and that was really helpful. And being able to kind of practice both was really awesome. So I really liked that BeMo was able to kind of accommodate with that, which was awesome. It was really easy to schedule my interviews. I know my first interview, I was kind of right before I was like, I should do some interview prep. I should. And able to get it scheduled, I think within like a week before my interview. So, and it was actually enough time to get the feedback and kind of focus on some stuff and I think make some improvements. And my first interview was actually for the University of Massachusetts where I wound up going. And I actually had raters like tell me like, oh, that was really good. And so I was definitely happy that BeMo was there. And I think definitely for the MMIs, kind of the structure that you guys give to kind of tackle any problem was so helpful. I don't definitely would not have done as well with those.
That's wonderful. That's awesome to hear. And it's so rare for students to get that in the moment feedback on their interview. And so
Yeah,
it always makes my heart sing a little bit when students are able to say, "Oh, they actually told me right away that that was really great." And so I'm so happy that also you were able to get that validation. That had to feel really good.
yeah, no, absolutely. No, that was good.
So So, reflecting back, what would you say you've learned from this process? And if you had a piece of advice to offer other applicants, what would that advice be?
I think the main thing you have to learn is on some level to be prepared for rejection, and it's not necessarily because of who you are or anything. It's just, it is such a competitive process. And I think a lot of us, I went to a relatively small undergrad and I was part of an honors program, so I was always kind of used to being a big fish in a small pond, and then realizing the pond for people applying is absolutely massive. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone has a great GPA and a good MCAT and has been getting experience. Like, everyone obviously has been doing everything they can to bolster their resume and making sure that they're a competitive applicant. So everyone's really competitive. And knowing on some level it is a numbers game and it's okay. And also, I think schools, and part of the interview, it's not just, oh, they didn't accept me, but it's also maybe I wasn't going to be a good fit there. And I think that was something I definitely found on one of my interviews. I absolutely hated it, like walked out crying. I was like, I don't want to come here, which was actually kind of nice because it was like a little bit of a sigh of relief, because it was like, it doesn't matter because I know that wasn't a good fit. And so kind of realizing rejection is going to happen in this process, and that's okay and that's normal, and that doesn't mean that the acceptances you do get are any less. That means you were supposed to be there and you're gonna be a good fit for that school, which is awesome. I think my main piece of advice I would give to anyone who's going through this process is to just start as soon as you can. The waiting game is awful, but the earlier you get it in, the better your chances. The sooner you're just like, all right, I'm done, and now I'm waiting. It's definitely just, the sooner you can get your stuff done, the better, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, as someone who's worked as an educator and worked with undergraduates in particular for so long, I really appreciate that point on, being used to being that big fish in the small pond.
Mm-hmm.
That experience of going from particularly the undergraduate level to the graduate or professional level can be a real shock for a lot of students because, yeah, just like you said, you're used to being the sort of top achiever, and now you're in a pool with all of the top achievers, and that can cause some real crises for students. I don't know if you've heard of imposter syndrome, but it's this
Mm-hmm.
idea that, students get this idea that somehow they've just fooled everyone into thinking that they're smart and their admission was a mistake and they're going to be found out. And it's really horrible for a person's own well-being and psychology and things like that. But it's just sort of what it is. And you have to sort of trust that if you've gotten in, you deserve to be there. They don't make those kinds of mistakes. So I appreciate that reflection on a personal level as well as a professional level.
Yeah.
So at this point, what are you most excited about as you get ready to begin this next part of your journey?
Yeah. I definitely see myself as sort of a lifelong learner. So being in the workforce for 2 years, I definitely miss just kind of like learning something new and cool every day. And so I'm excited to kind of get back to school a little bit, and sort of meeting more new people and kind of getting used to a new place. So kind of just anxious and excited for everything to get started. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. As stressful as school is, it's incredible how much you actually end up missing it once you're away. You're someone who really loves learning and just that process and the sort of
Yeah.
collegiality that comes with being in the classroom community and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure.
So, yeah. So, what do you hope to accomplish as a practicing professional, and where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Yeah. So the clinic that I've been working at with 2 years, for 2+ years, was an OBGYN clinic and sexual health kind of stuff. And I really, really enjoyed all of that. I know obviously so many people go into medical school thinking they know what they're going to do and they're going to change. So I'm definitely open to other fields. But right now I'm definitely leaning OBGYN, sexual health kind of stuff.
Nice.
It was also a clinic that served underserved populations and was a low income clinic. And I really just kind of vibe with being that source for a community, and being kind of, some people can't get healthcare anywhere else. And so kind of being that resource was really awesome. And so I think I would either like to be a part of, or at least like volunteer or spend time in a low income clinic for sure, as part of my practice.
Hmm. That's amazing and something that is so very much needed pretty much everywhere. Reaching out to people who are traditionally underserved or addressing those gaps in access to care, and particularly with regard to reproductive. and sexual health and things like that. So that's amazing. I love hearing where students are getting ready to go and just imagining the changes that are going to take place because of just how motivated and devoted they are. We talk to so many students who are really genuinely devoted to providing that kind of care, and
Mhm.
gives me a little bit of hope for the future. So I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, for sure.
Um, yeah. So, Mariah, any final words or anything that you'd like to add?
No, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
All right, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to meet with me. And of course, best of luck on your journey. I know you're going to do wonderfully and take that time before school starts to just live your best life and do a whole bunch of things for you and your own well being.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks.